So inside the machine we haven't had to do a lot other than we've inserted the baffle which came in the kit with the EMAR chaff decks. So that baffle is situated so that all the straw that's coming off the rotor is still going down through the chopper and is getting chopped and spread, and the chaff fraction that's coming off the sieves is staying below that that panel and is getting directed down onto the chaff decks and then directed out onto the chaff rows. So we didn't have to really modify anything or do anything in there. It seems to work with the way we set it up, and we seem to be getting enough weed seeds and seeds generally according to headers and harvest loss monitors down coming off the sieves rather than losses off the rotor. The standard headers, this here is your shaft on your discharge beater, but when you have the advanced power cast you actually have a second beater up in the back of the machine, and that's important when you're fitting the chaff decks, because to fit the chaff decks you actually slide the chopper back along the rails further back on the machine. By doing that you need something to transition the straw off the rotor that greater distance back to get into the chopper. If you don't have that second discharge beater, which is part of the premium, they seem to fail. There seems to be some stalling in there, and the guys I spoke to that had trouble have the standard system. They don't have that second discharge beater, and I think that's the key on the S series to make it transition back into the chopper. We had no trouble with this one, no blockages, no issues regardless of crop type or yield last year. Normally the chopper and the spreader and everything on these headers, this would be back down here. This stopper that's on the chopper would normally be down here in the original working position, but because you've moved it all back that far, you know, some 400 millimeters, you need to be able to get that material down into the chopper, because everything off the rotor still goes through the chopper and is still spread to the full width. There's some baffles in there that have been changed, and there's actually a cover over the top of that second beater. You actually open that cover up, which is done in the cabin electronically. You just open that cover up on that second beater, then you place a panel in the top there to the top of the chopper, which just puts a false ceiling in there, and then you put your baffle in from the bottom of the floor of the chopper just up in here underneath that second beater but above the sieves, so it catches all the chaff coming off the sieves, but anything that's coming above that baffle slides down into the chopper. If you have a look inside here, get right in there and have a look, you'll see that the curved bullnose front on this big baffle, and it's just below that second beater. So anything coming off the sieves is staying under that baffle and goes right down. If you look down at the ground from in there, you should be able to see the separation there. Then that chaff on that centre rubber flap at the bottom is diverting the chaff equally to the left or the right deck. But anything that's above that curved baffle slides down into the chopper and goes out through the spreaders. So part of the setting up the chaff decks and the hydraulics to drive them, because they're basically two just little conveyor mats, one on either side, just a little hydraulic motor in there, got a speed sensor on them. The hydraulic system, you just tap into the system after the spinners on the header. So normally that hydraulic hose would return back to the tank under low pressure. You just tap in there and you run the hydraulics through, and this all comes as part of the hydraulic kit with the chaff deck, into the speed controller for the flow controller for the speed, filtered, and then still just returns back to the header, back to the oil tank up top. You've got a speed sensor on each side on each chaff deck. You've got a little electronics speed readout in the cabin for both the left hand and the right hand deck. You adjust the flow speed here to get sort of around that 900, perhaps 1,000 revs per minute on each deck, and you can watch that, and if there's a failure or a blockage or something like that, you can pick it up in the cabin. So once you set them, we basically got the speed right to start the year, set them, and we never had any trouble and never touched them for the rest of the year. And if for any reason you do need to access the chaff decks under these little clips, that cover comes off, slides off out of the road, gives you access to the material coming off there, which you don't need to do, and we didn't have them off from the time we fitted them up. Little mat just conveys the product, comes out to this point out right to the back wall, and that then puts your chaff on the chaff lines in the line with the wheels onto our permanent tracks.